Good morning. Welcome to Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Byron, and I'm happy to be here as one of our presenters today. I'm also going to lead us in our opening hymn, which is number 313 in our gray hymnal, "Oh, what a piece of work we are." Please rise in body and spirit and join us in singing number 313 in our gray hymnal.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Tiffany Sapp, the minister of this church, and my pronouns are she and her. I am so glad to be with you all today. Our opening reading is a responsive reading today, and it is printed in your bulletin in the insert. I will say the parts in the regular font, and your reply is in italics. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the attendant of truth.
Doubt is the key to the door of knowledge. It is the servant of discovery.
A belief which may not be questioned binds us to error, for there is incompleteness and imperfection in every belief.
Doubt is the touchstone of truth. It is an acid which keeps away the false.
Let no one fear the truth, that doubt may consume it, for doubt is a testing of belief.
The truth stands boldly and unafraid. It is not shaken by the testing.
For truth, if it be truth, arises from each testing stronger, more secure.
Those that will silence doubt are filled with fear. Their houses are built on shifting sands.
But those who fear not doubt and know its use are founded on rock.
They shall walk in the light of their growing knowledge. The work of their hands shall endure.
Therefore, let us not fear doubt, but let us rejoice in its help.
It is the single wise and staff to the blind. Doubt is the attendant of truth.
Let us take a few moments to reflect on these words as we prepare for our time together. Doubt is the attendant of truth. We gather in this space for many reasons, but one of the reasons is what our fourth principle calls the quest for truth and meaning. The Unitarian Universalist value of pluralism reminds us that our diversity in perspectives and philosophies are one of our greatest strengths. And the atheist point of view does something for us that very few other perspectives offer. It counsels us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit, as our fifth source says so eloquently. Today, then, is a service created by atheists for atheists. I am happy to be here in a supportive role to learn from this perspective that keeps us grounded and honest with ourselves. It is fitting, then, to begin our time together with the chalice lighting from one of our better-known humanist Unitarian Universalist ministers. Wayne is going to assist me by lighting the chalice. This is Hymn to the Light. Our light is the light of the sun, keeper of all we love. Our light is the light of the earth, provider of sustenance. Our light is the light of all living things, life precious like our own. Our light is the light of each of us, bound together in need and hope. Our light is the light of the cosmos, keeper of all we know. We welcome you, old friends and new, young and old, online and in person. You are an essential part of our gathering here today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, we are stronger because of your presence. We are one people of many philosophies, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Please silence your cell phones. Please observe the perfume-free zone. And please respect the space and attention of any service animals who are in attendance today. They are working and should not be disturbed. Our COVID risk level is currently at low, meaning that masks are not currently required during the service, and we will continue to have a YouTube option for people who cannot be here with us for whatever reason. And no matter what the risk level is, we have color-coded wristbands so that you can indicate your distancing needs, and it is especially important to stay home if you're sick. Today, we are inviting our kids, youth, and their parents to join us up here for our Time for All Ages. Don't worry, none of the kids or parents will be on video. We have figured out the camera angles to maintain your privacy. So come on down, kids and families, and let's see what we can learn today. Hey y'all, it is so good to see you today. So I have a really awesome book I want to share with you today. It is called Elle the Humanist. And before we get started, I had a question. Do any of you all know what a humanist is? I see a few adults who do. It's okay if you don't know, but I wanted to give you a chance to say if any of you knew what a humanist is. Well, that's good news for us then, because this book is going to tell us what a humanist is. So, let's get started. Hello, my name is Elle. It is nice to meet you. I'm a humanist. A humanist is a person who tries to be good because they want to make the world a better place for everyone. Have you heard of a humanist? Most of my friends at school haven't, so they ask me questions to understand. Most of the time, these questions start when my friends ask me what church I go to. I tell them that I don't go to any church. So some humanists go to a church like this, and some don't go to any church. There are many humanist groups that give us the chance to be part of a community the same way a religious church is a community. Some humanists choose to be part of an organized group. My family's community comes from our friends and family, school, and the local soccer club that we love. Some of my friends ask me how I know what is right and wrong if I don't go to church and study books from their churches like the Bible or the Quran. My family doesn't read church books together, but we do love to read about science, nature, and history as we learn how to think about being good people. My parents taught me a simple rule to help me understand what is right and wrong. It is called the Platinum Rule. The Platinum Rule, you may have heard about it a few weeks ago, is very simple. Treat others the way they would like to be treated. Rules like these have been taught for thousands of years, and they have a chart here that shows how the Platinum Rule is like the Golden Rule in many different religions. So on this page, Elle talks about the different ways that she lives out the Platinum Rule. But rather than listening to how Elle lives the Platinum Rule, I'm kind of wondering how you all live the Platinum Rule. Can you help me brainstorm? What are some ways to be good to people? What are some ways to do for others the way they would want to be treated? Any thoughts? We're usually a very talkative group, but today we might be feeling a little low-key. Learn people's names. That's a lovely way. That's one I probably need to work on. Yeah. Huh? What you got?
Ask what foods they like.
Ask what foods they like instead of assuming they like the same things as you.
I have an example of when my son did the Platinum Rule last week.
Ooh. All right, let's hear it.
He did his cousin's Saturday's work for him on his birthday so that his cousin didn't have to do his Saturday's work on his birthday.
Ooh, so we did someone else's like chores and work for them as a gift. That's awesome. I'll let you know when my birthday's coming up. So here's what Elle says about the things she did. She says, I have to remember that some people don't want to be treated like I want to be treated because we are all very different. That is why the Platinum Rule teaches us to treat other people like they want to be treated, not like we want to be treated. So here's how it works. I love to be tickled on my feet, but my brother Bryson doesn't like to be tickled on his feet. So I don't tickle Bryson on his feet, but I love it when my mom tickles my feet. Some of my friends ask me questions like, how do you know if you're good enough to get into heaven if you die? I don't know anything about this, but I know that being a good person and helping others makes the people around me happier, and that makes me happy. It doesn't matter if you are Chinese, Pakistani, German, Mexican, or if you're from the United States like me. It doesn't matter if you believe in Krishna, Poseidon, Jesus, Muhammad, or you don't believe in any gods or prophets like me. We are all trying our best to be happy as we live on this wonderful earth, and being a good person and loving others makes us all happier than anything else. Which is why Elle is a humanist. Well, thank you so much for helping me learn a little bit more about humanism, and I hope you did too. It sounds like no matter what we believe or don't believe, we can be good humans, and I like that a whole lot. Y'all can go back to your seats. Being an atheist is not a single monolithic identity. Each person brings their own perspectives and motivations to their quest for truth and meaning. So it makes sense to hear from multiple perspectives, multiple voices within our community today instead of just one long sermon. Because of that, we are spreading these reflections throughout the service. Our first atheist presenter is already known to many of us. Charlie Miller serves on our Board of Trustees and is currently very busy with the congregation's pledge drive as the stewardship trustee. I'm very appreciative of the confident and logical ways that Charlie will come into conversation with me. Charlie's reflection, which seeks to clarify the very important difference between atheism and agnosticism, is a great example of exactly that. So let's welcome Charlie.
Hi, thank you. There's sometimes confusion or debate about whether the label of atheist or agnostic is more accurate or justified to use for those that do not believe in God. So I intend to clarify that distinction and share why I consider myself an atheist. It is important to also recognize that there's a social element that impacts the outcomes of rational exploration, and it manifested for me in the move from agnosticism to atheism. The term agnostic was coined by Adolf Huxley in 1869 when he wrote, "It is wrong for a man to say he is certain of the objective truth of a proposition unless he can provide evidence which logically justifies that certainty. That is what agnosticism asserts." So Gnostics claim to know God exists and that they can prove it. And everyone else is an agnostic by definition. Many who believe in God are agnostic. This very common position accepts that God can't be proven, but can only be known through faith. Atheists would agree that the Gnostic has not met the burden of proof Huxley describes. Therefore, agnosticism doesn't distinguish whether you believe in God's existence. And of course, an atheist would never propose that we can prove a negative. Atheist means not theist. Theism is a claim of belief, not a state of knowledge. While theism indicates a belief in God, there's a multitude of definitions for God. One can believe in one definition and not another. So in this regard, most people are atheists with respect to most gods that have been described. Clearly, the key distinction here is between belief and knowledge. Huxley's definition requires a certainty to accept a claim. In this way, knowledge is binary. However, belief is continuous. One can have various degrees of confidence in the believability or credence of a proposition. In the continuum of belief in the God proposition, with theism and atheism on opposite poles, the middle region of non-commitment is not agnosticism. The uncommitted and atheists have not been convinced of the theistic claim, but grant a different credence to its likelihood. The challenge of determining which label to adopt as part of one's identity is more than understanding definitions and personal philosophy. Many people live in a social context where there's a stigma to being an atheist. It may not view it as an acceptable possibility. Some theists are more accepting of agnostics, as atheists are thought to have rejected God and are thus more objectionable. The difference in social treatment can present a barrier to free inquiry. There is some trepidation in publicly stating a belief that can arouse anger or violence, and it can be challenging to entertain ideas to which your culture is hostile. For me, there was a process of discovering my beliefs, but also learning to accept them. Agnosticism was a waypoint in my development, where I wore an ambiguous label until I was more comfortable taking that risk. When I say I'm atheist, I'm saying I don't believe there's any transcendent or mystical beings, but I'm not saying I know there isn't. Our society assumes the default position is theism, and atheists must justify their position. On the contrary, the default for any claim is skepticism. So the theist is making the claim. Atheists are not required to provide justification. So why do I bother to declare my disbelief? First, to stand for the right to freely investigate one's belief to any end. And second, to push back against religion and politics. I truly believe a more secular society will be more free and democratic. Lastly, we need to recognize that atheists vary in all things they do believe. The primary cohesive force for such a disparate group is the social support needed for holding a decidedly minority view. It's in this regard that I feel lucky to be surrounded by so much support, and I'm thankful to this community for providing a safe space to share our search for truth and meaning. Thank you.
Beloved community, I am so grateful that together we are creating this place of belonging and acceptance. In our diversity of perspectives, there are many things that we hold in common, and most of those are connected with what it means to be human. We all experience joy. We all experience sorrow, and most of us are at our best when we get to share those things with each other. If you'd like to share a joy or concern in person, please use these candle cards that are located on the back table. And if you'd like to share a joy or concern from a distance, please email minister@hvuuc.org. If you wish to light your own candle, go around and form a line by the window, and Dwayne will assist you. If you're on this side of the building, please go around through the back door so that you don't have to pass in front of the camera. And if you wish us to light a candle for you, please raise your hand, and I will acknowledge you, and I will light the candle for you at the end. And we light our first candle for you who are not in the building, but are ever in our hearts and minds. Final candle for all that remains unspoken in our hearts and minds. Our next presenter has been a member of this congregation for about a year now, but his connection to Unitarian Universalism goes back way further than that. Before moving to East Tennessee, Byron was an active member of the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge, where he served in several leadership roles. Here, Byron has been working with the RE Collaborative and has been known to talk philosophy while raking leaves at congregational work days. Welcome, Byron.
All right, y'all. Today, let's talk about creeds and covenants for a little bit. Creedal religions are often built around a belief in the supernatural. Many of us grew up learning about these beliefs and dogmas. Sometimes, some of us have felt excluded because we did not believe. We've already heard some stories. But belief is not a choice, in my view. As an example, consider Bertrand Russell's celestial teapot. His analogy is that somewhere between Earth and Mars, there is a celestial teapot revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit. In the absence of proof, I'm not persuaded that some ornate, delicate piece of pottery is just floating in space, simply because Bertrand Russell came up with the idea. So I don't know where I would be on the agnosticism scale that what Charlie mentioned earlier. Even if we could choose to believe in the supernatural, we shouldn't expect other people to believe as well. We should not impose that belief. I think by far it is better to have a free exploration of the world, a freedom of ideas, and an idea marketplace, where we can openly discuss important questions to all of us, like how should we treat each other? Maybe the platinum rule, for example? Or how can we find meaning? So the freedom of ideas has been a powerful force for good in both science and in history. The scientific path of exploration has led to discoveries that have improved all of our lives. As an example, consider that the average lifespans in this country have doubled from 40 years just within the past 2 centuries. So as someone who's 44 years old, I very much appreciate that fact. We should all be grateful for vaccinations, antibiotics, nutritional improvements, and all these other advances brought to us by free thought and by the scientific process. Truly, it's made our lives better. History is full of examples of free thinkers leading the way, getting out in front. We owe much to indigenous critiques of hierarchy and of patriarchy. An influential critique was made by Kandiarak of the First Nation Wendat people, who lived near Lake Michigan in the late 1600s. These ideas greatly influenced the development of Enlightenment concepts, including all people are created equal, more than a century later. Think of how ideas like that were then championed by marginalized communities through the centuries following to improve lives with abolishing slavery, universal suffrage, the civil rights movement, women's liberation, and LGBTQIA rights. During times of change, such as the ones I just mentioned, many established creedal faiths lag behind society. Changes were imposed from the outside of the creedal faith and sometimes grudgingly accepted by them later. We can see this all around us even today, sometimes in the form of people throwing rocks at people that they don't agree with, like we heard earlier. A truly good belief system should result in good behaviors. The two should be linked together. The faithful should join us in getting out in front of societal change and advocating for marginalized people, consistently, forcefully, and unapologetically. Our Unitarian Universalist Church is not a creedal religion, it is a covenantal religion. We are in covenant with each other. We do not impose a test of belief to be within this community. We strive to be in right relations with each other. Actions and deeds are paramount. To be in covenant, each of us must behave with respect and treat each other well. It is our respectful actions that grant us the privilege of continuing to participate in this church. So through our actions, we reveal ourselves, but we only reveal parts of ourselves. There is a gap between what we say and how we act and how we believe. You could say there's kind of a chasm. We spend time with each other, we connect, we share experiences, we participate in committee meetings, either willingly or unwillingly. We get to know the church, we get to know each other, and we work to build a better community. But all throughout that, we cannot know what is in each other's hearts, what is hidden within. We cannot know what each of us truly believe. Therefore, if we are going to judge, I would advocate that we judge each other by actions, not beliefs. Unfortunately, there are a lot of folks that will judge atheists solely based on our lack of beliefs. Oftentimes, atheists are vilified and hated, even when we are kind and giving to others, or at least when we think we are. I have hesitated to share my atheism because of fear of being judged. It's a hard thing to talk about here in Tennessee, Appalachia. I appreciate that here in this building, in this community, we have a space where we can freely and responsibly share my thoughts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. A criticism that I have heard of atheism, not in this place, but outside of this place, is that it makes death more painful and less meaningful. It's a criticism I don't agree with. I've always noticed that these criticisms are always coming from theists, so how would they know? The atheists that I speak to find meaning in coming to a long, silent rest after a life well lived. That it makes life all the more precious and makes the decisions and choices we make all the more important. And some of them use science to contemplate how, even though their understanding of their self might dissolve, that everything that made them who they were is still present in this closed system of the universe. Our reading today, which I've read at the funerals of atheists and theists alike, explore this very concept. This is, you want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy so that they will understand that your energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe and none is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that was her beloved child remains with her in this world. You want that physicist to tell your weeping father that amid the energies of the cosmos, you gave as good as you got. And at one point, you'd hope that that physicist would step down from the pulpit and walk to your broken-hearted spouse there in the pew and tell her that all the photons that ever bounced off your face, all the particles whose paths were interrupted by your smile, by the touch of your hair, hundreds and trillions of particles have raced off like children, their ways forever changed by you. And as your widow rocks in the arms of a loving family, may the physicist let her know that all the photons that bounced from you were gathered in the particle detectors that are her eyes, that those photons created within her constellations of electromagnetically charged neurons whose energy will go on forever. And the physicist will remind the congregation of how much of all of our energy is given off as heat. There may be a few fanning themselves with their programs as he says it, and he will tell them that the warmth that flowed through your life is still here, still part of all that we are, even as we who mourn continue the heat of our own lives. And you'll want the physicist to explain to those who loved you that they need not have faith. Indeed, they should not have faith. Let them know that they can measure, that the scientists have measured precisely the conservation of energy and found it accurate, verifiable, and consistent across space and time. You can hope your family will examine the evidence and satisfy themselves that the science is sound, and they'll be comforted to know your energy is still around. According to the law of conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You're just a little less orderly. Our last reflection will be offered by Sarah Allred, who has been a member of our congregation for 2 whole weeks now. You might know her best from how she has just saved our bacon, stepping in to play the piano while James is out sick today. And I have enjoyed getting to know Sarah in adult RE2 discussions. In fact, she might be the most well-read person that I know, which is really saying something because I am here in ministry with you all. Like Sophia, Sarah was with us in the Owning Our Religious Past class, and part of the class was about embracing our own stories. Sarah's reflection today very much does that, so let's welcome Sarah to the pulpit.
I wish I'd had a physicist to speak at my husband's funeral. A little emotional, I'll try to. It was in 10th grade when I first began to suspect I was an atheist. In many places in America in the 1990s, this might not have been a big deal. But in my family, the product of 5 generations of Mormons, with 80-odd Mormon first cousins, living in a small town in northern Utah, in a school where everyone could identify the handful of non-Mormons, it was unthinkable. Given my family and my community, you'd think that if I managed to arrive at atheism at all, it must have been at the end of a very long and, depending on your own religious history, possibly heroic struggle. But in fact, atheism was just something that dawned on me one day in the stadium seating of Mr. Huey's AP chemistry class, when I was staring, not at the chalkboard, but at Keturah Huber's long brown hair. Keturah was one of the few non-Mormon kids in our high school, her parents having moved to Utah from Montana, a state we all knew was full of heathens. The sneaky kind of heathen, too, since you were tempted to think that, sharing your experience of living at the foot of God's mountains, they'd be your fellow compatriots against the obvious East Coast heathens, the kind that lived in cities and drank coffee and read the New York Times. I sat there wondering what it would be like to know that you were born out of the covenant. Keturah wasn't somebody you'd think would be excluded from the celestial kingdom. She had an easy laugh and an open face and willingly shared both her knowledge of chemistry and the novels she went through at an extraordinary rate. Does she know, I wondered, that she's lost the lottery of eternity? And then I imagined in my head billions and billions of tiny dots, one for each human that had ever lived. And I imagined all the Mormons lighting up like tiny candles. In that sea of billions, would the glow of Mormons even be perceptible, despite all the time we spent baptizing the dead? And suddenly, the question became not what Keturah's chances were of losing the lottery of eternity, but what really was the probability that I was one of the vanishingly small number who had won that lottery. Who knew? I only knew that I went into that thought a believer, and I emerged from it with the sickly suspicion that I was an atheist. The British writer Alain de Botton has said that for most of us, belief or disbelief in God is kind of like experiencing attraction to another person. It's not something you arrive at after principled philosophical inquiry, devout prayer, or choice. It's just something that you recognize in your body and brain, often quite unexpectedly. 15-year-old Sarah didn't want to be an atheist. Oh, Lord, anything but that. For despite my snide remarks about East Coast sinners, home wasn't like that. At our daily 6 a.m. family scripture and our nightly family prayers, we did talk about the many sins plaguing contemporary America, but we talked more often about loving our neighbors, no matter who those neighbors were or how many sins they seemed likely to have committed. In fact, as my mom told me often, considering the sins of my neighbor was in fact to commit my own sin of pride. Reminders that Mormons alone possess the fullness of God's truth came hand in hand with the reminders of the glass through which we darkly saw. My 7 younger siblings were my best friends. Sure, we couldn't watch much TV or listen to music other than classical and hymns, but we built zip lines into piles of fall leaves, memorized articles of faith in campsites across the country, and conducted 100-person day-long games of steal the flag at family reunions and ate Sunday dinner on a converted ping pong table. Many fast Sundays, after I put my sister's hair in French braids for my mom, I stood in front of my congregation and bore my testimony of God and family, which to all of us were one and the same. Faith was everywhere in my family, and my family was everywhere in my faith. 30 years after that day in Mr. Huey's AP chemistry class, I'm still an atheist, although it took a good 15 years of wondering if my brain was broken before I fully claimed that label. I believe in many things, not God, though a close observer might correctly note that many of my core beliefs, for example, that tomorrow will be a better, brighter day and also the day I will become a better person, are just as improbable as God's existence. I am, clearly, no longer a practicing Mormon, although I am, much to my great relief, still a practicing member of my family. One of my sisters is even here today. That is something to clap for. Sometimes it's funny, as when I promise my dad I will return to the Mormons if I see an angel while on the road to Salt Lake. Sometimes it's terribly sad, as every couple years when I have to wait outside the temple during one of my siblings' weddings. I have spent much of my life living in heathen East Coast cities. I drink coffee, I read the New York Times. And often when other coffee-drinking, New York Times reading heathens find out how I grew up, I'm asked to account for the geographic and metaphysical distances I've traveled in tones that suggest both that I escaped a backwards life and that it must have required some exceptional strength of character to do so. And I never know quite how to answer, because yes, I love the life I am incredibly fortunate to have, a life which is outside the straight and narrow of my childhood. But at the same time, even as an adult, not much is better than a 100-person game of steal a flag. And also, strength of character had nothing to do with it. I didn't set out to become an atheist. It just happened, like a car accident or a winning lottery ticket, depending on your perspective. But I definitely feel like I won the lottery to be here at HVU UC. I didn't ever imagine that I would be able to be true to myself and also find another religious home. Thank you.
I don't know about you all, but I am so moved by the stories that we've heard today. And I know there are as many stories out there as there are people in these chairs. I hope we get a chance to hear each other's stories as often as possible. We're going to extinguish our chalice now with words from the well-known atheist Richard Dawkins, who finds an awful lot of meaning in the idea that this existence is all there is for us. The chances of each of us coming into existence are infinitesimally small. And even though we shall all die someday, we should count ourselves fantastically lucky to get our decades in the sun. Thank you for being with us today. Being part of such a diverse community is such a good thing. I hope we can continue to listen to each other and learn from each other on our quest for truth and meaning. We didn't have anyone sign up for coffee hour this week, so we won't have coffee hour. If that's something you'd like to help out with, there's a sign-up sheet in the fellowship hall. You will get some training on how to use the coffee pot and some guidance on how to do it if it's your first time. We are having an Article 2 workshop today in about an hour. That means that you have time to go get some food and then be back here by 1 p.m. to explore the proposed changes to the Unitarian Universalist Association's bylaws, which includes our principles and sources. I hope you'll join me for that exploration. If you haven't signed up, if you haven't RSVP'd, you are totally welcome. And then we'll have a second Article 2 workshop, same content, different format on Zoom this Tuesday at 6 p.m. If you want to come to that one, please email me at minister@hvuuc.org so that I can make sure you have the Zoom link. Next week is daylight savings time, so make sure to spring forward or you'll miss us. That would make me very sad. Next week, we will be learning about and experiencing how improvisation can help in our personal development, both as individuals and as community. There's going to be a jam session. There's going to be a lot of creative improvisational elements. You might get to see what I sound like when I'm off script. So we're going to learn stuff, but we're going to have a lot of fun while we're doing it. Other learning opportunities abound as well right now. Starting the first Sunday in April, the anti-racist subgroup of the Social Justice Committee will be hosting a book group using the book Mistakes and Miracles: Congregations on the Road to Multiculturalism. This book explores how 5 different Unitarian Universalist congregations has done their work to build anti-racist, multicultural, beloved communities. The book group will take a chapter a month and will meet on the first Sunday of every month starting next month. To sign up for this book group, you can talk to John, or you can email antiracism@hvuuc.org. The membership development team is working to determine when we should offer our next Path to Membership class. So if you're interested in learning more about us and what membership here involves, please sign up on the sheet on the side counter, which is back there. There's a big Path to Membership sign. Or you can email membership@hvuuc.org. The date of the next class will be determined by the number of people interested. And starting today, Girl Scout seniors Alexis, Moth, and Olivia are collecting period products for a local high school as part of their Gold Award. They aim to improve access to period products for high schoolers and eliminate period poverty. There is a well-marked bin set up near the front door specifically for collecting these products, and the collection will go through March 19th, so you have a few weeks to bring your donations in. Thank you so much for supporting Troop 543's efforts and for supporting teens in need of period products. Our pledge drive is underway, and Charlie has a pledge form for you to pick up after service. Please look for Charlie and get your form, and I believe he's going to be near the exit so that he can catch you on your way out. Don't run away too fast. Get your pledge form. The pledging process is essential for the continued functioning of our congregation. Without pledges, we cannot form a budget. Without a budget, we don't know how to fund our programs or pay our staff. So I hope you'll be thoughtful about what you can commit to continue the programming, social justice work, and fellowship opportunities that we enjoy here. As you can see, this congregation has caught the spring energy, and we have all sorts of things blooming. To stay in touch with all of the opportunities to learn and the ways to make an impact on the world, you can sign up for our e-news by giving your information at the visitors table or email visitor@hvuuc.org. Here is our benediction, an elemental blessing. May your kindness abound like hydrogen, which fuels every star and is the most plentiful element in the universe. May your generosity refresh like oxygen, which burns in every candle flame, falls in every raindrop, and is exhaled in the great, slow sigh of every forest. May your love endure like bismuth, which could radiate energy for 20 billion years and only be half depleted, but whose iridescent crystals are safe enough to hold. And may your strength persist like carbon, which has enabled all life our solar system knows, has known, or ever will know, from diplodocuses to dandelions, from blue-green algae to blue whales, from the katydids that cling to branches and chirrup through the night, to the kale that clings to life aboard the International Space Station and hurtles throughout the silent, endless night of outer space. Thank you for being with us today. I really enjoyed hearing everyone's wisdom and personal experiences. We can meet in this pluralistic, free-thinking society because of the donations and pledges made by you all. So as we sing our closing hymn, please give generously to help continue to be a space where atheists and monotheists and polytheists and none of the aboves can all be in community together. Wendy's going to come up and help us with our closing hymn, and our closing hymn for this month is We Are Building a New Way, number 1017 in the Teal hymnal. So that is 1017 in the Teal hymnal, We Are Building a New Way.
All right, y'all, we're gonna rock it. We are building a new way. We are building a new way.
We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.